There was a quote from Carlton Cuse, the head writer of the TV show Lost, that reads, "There are just so many options that people have. But as a writer, you'll drive yourself crazy if you worry about that too much. People watch a lot of TV, so they think certain things are going to happen, and you're always going to try to subvert expectations." This is exactly what happened to me recently when watching the new Netflix animated series Captain Laserhawk. My expectations were subverted. Typically on this channel, I tend to examine a trope or asset of media rather than looking at a specific piece of media, but this show has been on my mind for the past few days now, and I do have a lot to say about it. I'll be totally honest, I did not expect to like this show as much as I did. Most nerd-oriented media, as I tend to call it, typically tends to fall into one of two pitfalls. Either it A, relies on the same set of jokes that are far too repetitive and base level to contain any sort of substance or cleverness, or B, they try to appeal to both specific nerd niches but also captivate a general audience, which more than often ends in failure. With nerd culture now essentially being intertwined with mainstream culture in many ways, and some of the richest people in the world being considered nerds, it has never been a better time to be a supposed nerd. Some of the most influential people in current culture are by definition nerds as well, with how online activity and the internet has had so much influence over what we do. I went to PAX East for the first time ever earlier this year, and that was packed with many different aspects of nerd culture, and thousands upon thousands of people. So it's shocking to see how wrong most movie or TV studios end up becoming when they try to create nerd-oriented media. Thankfully, this was not the case with Captain Laserhawk. As I said before, I did not expect much of this show when initially viewing it. My first exposure to it, inevitably, was the insanely out-of-pocket Rayman clips being circulated online, with that character doing the most alarming and brutal things to himself and people around him. At first glance, I was unimpressed, since this seemed like a typical attempt at shock humor utilizing such a beloved platforming icon character like Rayman. However, upon viewing the show, it became clear what the context surrounding this was. But to explain that, I need to explain exactly what Captain Laserhawk is. Captain Laserhawk is a recent animated show created by Ubisoft in partnership with the animation team who actually created the incredible Castlevania series for Netflix. The show is very loosely based upon Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, which was, in turn, a Ubisoft shooter very heavily inspired by 80s futuristic media and synthwave vibes like those seen in Tron, Blade Runner, and even Max Headroom. The game itself essentially played the same as the other Far Cry games available at that point, simply with the added addition of having this unique neo-futuristic retrowave aesthetic to go with it. Interestingly enough, the show is actually very different from this game. The show goes the extra mile in including not just Far Cry characters, but also characters from pretty much every Ubisoft game ever, and homages to so many more. Jade and Paige from Beyond Good Evil are actually central characters in the show, as is a frog based upon the assassins from the Assassin's Creed series. As mentioned before, Rayman is also a key character here, except in this show, he is a news anchor reporting on vigilantes that the government wants to keep under tabs. Other Ubisoft characters that are focal to the plot include Sarah Fisher from the Splinter Cell series of games, and Marcus Holloway from the Watch Dogs games. Essentially, the plot revolves around the titular character Captain Laserhawk, getting betrayed by his lover, Alex, in the very first episode of the show after the two of them are pulling off a heist together. After getting knocked out by Alex, Laserhawk wakes up in a facility that only contains him and a few other characters, namely Jade, Paige, and Bullfrog, the Assassin's Creed frog as mentioned before. Oh, and Cody Rhodes, but he dies instantly. Yeah, that happens. The kickoff to the main plot begins with Sarah Fisher forcing the main characters to investigate certain areas of the city for her and do various missions, which Laserhawk begrudgingly obliges to, wanting to find out the truth about Alex. This is as far as I'll go with the main plot details, since I really do recommend you watch this show for yourself. It's an immensely good looking show with tons of gorgeous animation, and also tons of different animation styles utilized. There are several scenes done in a 16-bit classic video game style, but also some done in the style of 90s point-and-click game FMVs, which I was totally not expecting. And as for the Rayman aspect I mentioned earlier, that is shockingly well done, and actually pretty interesting. In this show, Rayman is actually an alien from another dimension, that was embraced by the people of this city and eventually became their head news anchor. However, he is completely mentally unstable due to the fact he knows he won't ever really be accepted by the people of this city, and just isn't like them. That's really interesting and totally makes sense when you look at the kinds of games Rayman has, as opposed to most other Ubisoft games. But the reason why I say this show is actually an excellent example of nerd-oriented media isn't necessarily because of the properties it chooses, but how it uses them. The showrunners actually specifically stated that they stuck with only a few core Ubisoft properties that made sense for this kind of storyline. To me, that shows real understanding of how good storytelling works, as opposed to simply throwing as many nerdy darts as you can at the wall and hoping something sticks. So yeah, I absolutely recommend this show. It exceeded my expectations, and I really can't wait to see what happens next. Netflix and Ubisoft, you did something right for once. Good job. I really hope we continue to see more nerd-based media with this level of creativity and thought put into it. Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like. If you didn't like it, give it a like anyway. I've definitely been enjoying these last few media analysis videos I've done, and I will continue to keep doing them. If you have any suggestions for any other future videos, leave them in the comments below. If you can share this video, that will help a lot for the algorithm. Keep it all the watch time I can get. I stream on Twitch 4 times a week. You can catch me over there too when I'm not putting out videos here. I use Twitter and Instagram for my updates. You can catch those socials all down in the description below. For now though, I'm Noah the Otter, and I'll see you on the Otter side. Bye!